In this video, we're going to be replacing the flexible brake hose on the driver's side of this 2007 Mazda CX-9. Alright, we're going to remove our front wheel. It's going to be a 21 millimeter. So the first thing we're going to do is remove our clips holding our brake line into the respective brackets, top and bottom here. We're going to use a hook tool. Just get into that little opening on the clip and just try and pull that clip outwards or away. And now we'll just remove that line from the bracket. So now up here, where our hard brake line meets our flexible brake hose, we have a fitting. It's going to be a 10 millimeter. Before you break this line free, you're going to want to have some kind of spill protection down. We have our absorbent mats. As soon as you open this up, you should see some brake fluid come out. Just be prepared. So up top here, where we have our hard line, brake line, meeting our flexible hose, we have a nut. It's going to be a 10 millimeter. Now at this point, as soon as we break that line, we're going to have some fluid drop out. We're going to need to have some kind of spill protection down. We have our absorbent mat. Just want to be prepared for some fluid to come out of here. And you also notice as we twist this line, this hard line wants to move. So we're going to have to support that hard line from spinning. All right, so there's your brake line separated. Now what you want to do, you can take it out of this clip here against the fender well if you want to. We'll go ahead and do that just to show you. What this will allow you to do is make sure the end of this is clean and free of any debris. All right, so try not to bend that line. What we can do is just let that line rest right there. And we're going to remove this clip holding this line in place on this bracket. Grab a hold of that clip, just pull it straight out. We're going to take this line, wiggle it straight out of that bracket. Now inside this line, you're going to have some residual fluid in here. What we're going to do is just drain this right down into our mat. Let that hang. The next thing we're going to do is take an 11 millimeter socket and remove our brake line from the caliper. Now you have a banjo bolt here, and you're going to have two crush washers with a bolt going through the center. We're going to reuse the bolt, but not the washers. Your new line will come with new washers. Just go ahead and let that drain. Remove your bolt. Now again, we can let go of our line. We can make sure that our banjo bolt has no old crush washer on it. We can grab our new line. I'm going to set it in the right orientation. It's going to go on the caliper. We're going to need one crush washer on the outside. Our new line, one crush washer on the inside. We can thread this into our caliper. And if you'll notice, your line has a little hook on the end, and that's going to go into a little groove on the caliper. So just make sure that's aligned. We're just going to snug this up to try and prevent any fluid leakage while we work on the rest of it. We will come back and torque this down. So now we're going to take our brake line. We're going to put it into the bracket in the back. All right, so you're going to make sure your bracket or your brake line in the back is seated all the way into the bracket, which means sometimes you have to turn it. And for that, I'm going to use a pair of needle nose pliers here, just see if we can turn it enough to get into that bracket. There we go. Once we have that line all the way into that bracket, we're going to put this retaining clip in there. Just push it in. That'll lock that line in place. Now we can take our brake line, make sure the end is free and clear of any residue or debris. We can put that line back into this clip and into our new flexible hose. From here, we're just going to tighten that nut down. All right, once you've got that line nice and tightened up, we're going to come back with some brake clean and just squirt that area and make sure we get rid of all the brake fluid that's collected around here so we can identify any leaks that may happen. All right, so once this dries up, should be a good identifier if you have any leaks in that line. While that's drying up, we can continue to move forward on this flexible hose and put it into the bracket here on our strut. We're going to take that hose, align it into that bracket, seat it all the way in, which again might mean we have to turn it slightly. Keep a little forward pressure on that line, and we can slide our clip into place. All right, now we can move down here to our banjo bolt. We can torque that down. So for our banjo bolt here, it's going to be 19 foot-pounds. Torque that down. And once we're done with that, we'll go ahead and clean this area with some brake fluid as well. Keep an eye open for any leaks. Just clean this area here and just keep an eye open for any potential leaks. So we'll go ahead and bleed our brakes, and then if we need to add any fluid, we'll do that as well. So now because we opened up our brake line and possibly introduced air, we're going to need to bleed our brakes. We're going to do that by opening our bleeder valve here, which is going to be an 8mm. And what we're going to look for is a stream of fluid coming out of that bleeder with no brakes, no hesitation, no pops, no bubbles. Once we get that, we're going to go ahead and close our bleeder back up. So right now it looks pretty good. Right at the end here, I don't see any hesitations or bubbles. Looks like it's a clean stream. So we'll go ahead and close that back up. Now we're going to want to do this a couple of times. You're going to want to check your brake pedal. Make sure you get in the vehicle, press your brakes, and the brakes do not go straight to the floor. If you do have the brakes go straight to the floor, you're going to want to perform this a few more times until you have a nice firm pedal. Once you're done with that, go ahead and check your fluid. Top off any fluid if necessary. Now we can go ahead and put our wheel back on. Typically when I put a wheel back on, I will do 2 lug nuts top and bottom, and I'll rock it back and forth to try and get it as flat as I can. Sometimes they're a little difficult to get nice and flush. This helps. And then we'll put our other lug nuts back on. We're going to snug them up while we're in the air, and then we'll lower the vehicle to torque them down. So now we're down on the ground, the wheel can't rotate. We're going to torque down our lug nuts to 85 foot-pounds, and we're going to do it in a crisscross pattern.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.